All right, music fans, welcome back. It is Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, and yours truly right here. The Cars' debut album, 40 years old today. Holy crap, Batman. Time is keeps on slipping into the future. To quote Steve Miller. Just an amazing album from start to finish. I think it redefined music. I know that might be kind of a bold statement, but what the Cars did on their debut was nothing short of almost redefining the sound of classic rock. Obviously, an album that was made in the 1970s. It hangs on to some of those 70s things that were going on, but a guy like Greg Hawkes, the keyboard player, absolutely reinvents music with his style. Elliot Easton, who is a very underrated guitar player, he just did stuff on that album that was very unique and very formidable if you're a guitar player, to just learn some of those techniques that he had going on. And you had two very interesting lead vocalists. You had Rick Ocasek, who is quirky and a little offbeat, but still very fun to listen to. And then you had the master, Benjamin Orr, the late, great Ben Orr, like I always say, one of the great unsung heroes of the Cars, and the only other Orr from Boston that I think you would want to know about. It's Bobby, and then it's Ben. But what I can say about the debut is when I first heard this music, I was thinking to myself, okay, these guys have a knack for not only great songwriting, but catchy, upbeat, up-tempo, weird lyrics at times, more provocative things going on in these songs, lyrically speaking, than the typical stuff that was coming out at the time. And another thing I realized is that they were playing new wave style music way ahead of its time. Really, the new wave stuff that I got into was mostly in the early 80s to mid 80s. That's really where it started. But the Cars put this thing out in the 70s, and it was at least 2 or 3 years ahead of its time. It did keep, like I say, some of the 70s guitar playing and stuff, and the production. Again, Roy Thomas Baker, an absolute genius producer, harnessed this band, this energy. By the way, the Cars a lot of times weren't known to be a great live band. I think they got better over time. But in the early days, when they were playing clubs and stuff, a lot of people walked out and basically said, well, I don't get it. I just don't get it. They just stand there. They're very stoic. And this was in contrast to like all the glam rock and things that were happening around them. And they still have that reputation throughout their career as they don't move around. They stand still. I think probably Ben Orr was the most animated guy, and Greg Hawkes a little bit too. By the way, honorable mention here to David Robinson, their drummer, who kept the beat, and again, he had a style that worked very well. He was a little on the funky side, but he was a great timekeeper. What's most important about David Robinson is he was back there, he was reliable, and you know, I know lately David maybe had enough of music. He seemed almost just a little put off by the fact that the Cars were getting back together again a few years ago. I watched him in interviews, and I think he had just settled into his life and was like, you know, this is just weird. But the debut album is one of those records I would bring somewhere. Like if you're stranded on the island, you always hear that. If you're stranded on an island, I'd bring the Cars debut. I'd bring Boston, their debut album. The reason I bring the Cars is because it's just so much different than anything that's has been made since. It's just a very unique sounding album. And the Cars honestly had trouble recapturing the magic of that album. Their second album was very good, Candio. But then by Panorama, they kept trying to reinvent themselves and do different things. They harnessed a little bit of that 80s energy on Heartbeat City. And I think they went out strong on the much underrated Door to Door album. And then that album from a few years ago, not bad, not bad. It sort of rehashed some of the stuff from the early days and put it out there. And it was good that they put an album out, but nothing's going to compare to the debut. It's 40 years old. It's crazy to think about. One of the greatest albums ever made. And thank goodness that band is now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All right, I'm done with this video. I'll be back with more real music talk real soon. So hang out, stay tuned. See you then.